This video is brought to you by War Thunder. Hey, hello, howdy, how you doing? You already saw the title and clicked on the thumbnail, so let's just skip the pleasantries. It's 16 pop zombies. As a shameless plug, all of this was streamed live over on Twitch, where you can find me on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. If you're looking for the VOD of this playthrough, you can find all of them or the condensed series video over on the second channel, both of which are linked in the description. You can also find the mod list for this playthrough in the description as well. Finally, like I just said, I have an ad for War Thunder that appears at around the 10-minute mark, so just a heads up on that. Alright, let's get to it. Our journey begins in the town of Rosewood, the southeast of it to be exact. It's here where we meet the protagonist of our story, Steamy Ray Vaughn. No, not the guy who died in a plane crash, the one who shits his britches. There's the build and skill outline, if anyone cares about that. It's still very much a work in progress, but I wanted something that I could heavily rely on for weapons, and tripling up on carving seemed like the best way to go about that. Anyway, first things first, I looted the starter home, walking away with a sheet sling bag, a steel bar, some basic tools, and a spear that I crafted out of a long stick. Oh, and I also junked the pistol and ammo, since it seemed a bit cheap to start a playthrough with that already at my disposal. With the starter home cleared, I hit up the other houses on the block for some food, and even logged my first kill of the playthrough. The only real way to survive early on in 16-time pop Zomboid is to stick to the outskirts, so that was the plan. Head south, loot the farmhouses that no one ever looks twice at, and slowly but surely build up supplies and skills to make the looting runs into town just a bit easier. In between houses, I'd walk around in stealth mode just to watch the XP fly up. Seriously, hitting Sneaking 2 and Lightfoot 3 on day 1 is insane, and something that really is only possible if you crank up the spawns to max settings. Not that Sneaking will even do all that much, considering I went conspicuous and stealth in Zomboid is all based around a tile radius, but watching a big number go up and red bar turn green makes Smooth Brain happy. The biggest lesson I had to learn early on in this playthrough was that you can't just solve problems the same way you could in Build 41, with brute force. Which kinda sucked for me, considering that was one of my favorite things about Build 41. If you're good at combat, no objective is impossible. But in 42, where your weapons have the durability of a paper straw and your character, despite having 9 fitness and 10 strength, has the muscle density of a Holocaust survivor, it's just not feasible. Also, they massacred spears in 42, and if that isn't classified as a hate crime towards spear enjoyers, I don't know what is. Anyway, after trying and failing to fight my way through a little over 10 zombies, I gave up on the house and looped underneath the horde before continuing on my way. To celebrate almost surviving my first day in 16-time pop, I had Steamy Ray Vaughn make himself a nice steak dinner while watching Life and Living. To end the day, I managed to knock out another sneaking level in about an hour after walking to a house in the west. Just watch. Oh, and I also crashed the world's shittiest birthday. Day 2 got off to a hot start when I located the survivor house along the strip in the south. Since I don't have the tools necessary to remove the planks from the windows, I had to rely on the zombies inside breaking out just for me to finally break in. While I waited for that to happen, I ran a few laps around the base while crouched to knock out another level in sneaking. It's here where I literally walked directly into my first near-death experience. See, how I normally play Zomboid can be best described as erratic, at least in the start. My thought process on it is pretty simple and straightforward. You can be a bit more risky at the start of a video since it's so early on and easy to recover from. If I die on day 2, there's a lot less ground to make up than dying on day 60. Sure, I could have opened the door and immediately ran for the window, but it's much more exciting if I nosedive through 3 of them, narrowly escape death on a 4th, and then run laps around the kitchen before ultimately coming to my senses and funneling them through a broken window. At least I got a cigarette, some cowboy boots, and a cool looking backpack out of it. The survivor house itself was obviously loaded with various weapons and gear, so I grabbed as much as I could carry without encumbering myself, and made a note to revisit the house after I found a more suitable base location. Especially considering there was another group of zombies making their way over, and Steamy Ray Vaughn just can't handle that many in a single fight yet. Of course, that didn't stop me from trying. Just east of the survivor house, I found another small farm settlement with 2 homes and a barn containing a generator. Of course, the entire area was flooded with zombies, but for some reason, I felt an overwhelming desire to make this place my home for the next week or so. I don't know, there's just something about it that I couldn't quite get out of my head. After jump-starting my Only Zombs channel, I headed outside to repel the dozens of adoring fans who'd flocked over to my new home. Equipped with a garden hoe, cowboy boots, and a baseball bat, I went to town on the incels camping out near my property line. That was, until I got drowsy, at which point I snuck back into my new home for the rest of the night with a new friend. You're coming with me. This may sound a bit dramatic, but practically the entirety of days 3 and 4 were spent fighting zombies around the house. Like, we had Steamy Ray Vaughn outside swinging a baseball bat and hopping fences at 7 a.m., and he was still out there at 5 p.m. on both days. Just back-to-back days entirely dedicated to kicking ass. On the bright side, it gave me a bunch of jeans, long socks, and skirts to shorten for some easy tailoring XP. Not to mention all the watches that I could use to work towards electrical level 3, considering most of the major POIs to find books at are inaccessible due to the, I don't know, thousands of zombies guarding them. When I wasn't duking it out with the zombies, I had Mr. Vaughn start knocking out some of the Volume 1 skill books I'd managed to collect, such as Electrical and Maintenance 1. Which brings me to my first complaint with Build 42. Why did we choose to mess up a perfectly fine inventory system for the sake of making me open a big blocky crafting menu to achieve the same goal? In Build 41, you used to be able to just right-click a set of watches and click Disassemble All. Now, you either have to click through each one individually, or you need to open the crafting menu, find Disassemble Watch, and then set it to max. But even on max, the watches are still split by color. So max doesn't mean all of your watches, it means all of your red watches, and then you have to set it for all of the black watches, and then all of the metallic watches. So with this new change, we've gone from 2 clicks to disassemble 10 watches to like 6 clicks to disassemble 10 watches, and with a menu that's 3 to 4 times the size just to achieve the same goal. The easier, more convenient system has been made worse in an attempt to push players to a crafting menu for a more convoluted setting. This is a running theme with this video and one that will be brought up several times as we encounter these changes. And I know this is an unstable build, and that's precisely why I'm going to be bringing this up so many times, because the unstable build is meant for feedback, and what better way to provide that feedback than by showing how often these issues arise. So while I do piss and moan about some stuff for way too long, admittedly, just bear with it, because there is a reason behind the madness for it. Hopefully, there are changes that can be fixed before stable goes live. It's also worth mentioning that this is all taking place at the time of recording, so it's very possible that by the time this video releases, this has already been fixed. So take all of my unhinged ranting with a grain of salt. To counter the negativity, you know what they got right in Build 42? Foraging. As someone who hated the skill and how unfinished it was in Build 41, you know the changes have been amazing because it's now one of my all-time favorite skills in Build 42, which is weird to say. I don't know if it's just the amount of new variations of items they've added, like different types of stones and branches that can be used in recipes or what, but foraging in Build 42 is oddly addicting and something I find myself enjoying compared to 41, where it felt very half-assed and incomplete. And that's not including the fact that you can now interact with the environment. So if you see a pile of stones on the floor in the woods, you can pick up a stone. Same with sticks and logs. It's a very welcome change and one that makes me excited to try out different biomes. And what better way to explore new biomes than in a tank, plane, or massive naval ship thanks to today's sponsor, War Thunder. If for some reason you've spent the last decade vacationing at North Sentinel Island and weren't aware, War Thunder is the most in-depth vehicle combat game ever made. Period. And better yet, it's available for free on PC, consoles, and mobile.
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
It's the only game I can think of where you can hop into over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships, all from 10 major nations throughout history over the course of 100 years. And don't worry, the details and schematics of each vehicle have already been fact-checked by the loyal and dedicated player base. Now there's no hitboxes or HP or anything like that either. Every vehicle has been intricately modeled onto its specific individual components. Don't believe me? Just ask the Pentagon. No bullshitting, my favorite part of the game is the X-ray view, which is basically just that bullet time shot from Sniper Elite, but for vehicles. It scans in and shows you exactly where a shell penetrates, or which components were affected, and even the killing blow to the vehicle. The gameplay is actually pretty sick, and the graphics are really good, even on mobile. The game also just sounds amazing. I think sound in a game is one of those underrated aspects where you don't really notice when it's good, but you can definitely tell when it's done poorly, and that's not the case with War Thunder. Everything sounds authentic and well designed, like the missiles impacting their target or the jets breaking the sound barrier. Even your favorite Zomboid YouTubers are playing War Thunder. Probably why it takes him 2 months to make a damn video. Come on, Rick. It's not just him either. At the time of writing this, there's over 70 million players pulling off their own Geneva suggestions in this absolutely massive PvP environment. Seriously, there's really no other game quite like it. Again, all of this is available to you for free, as long as you already own a PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or cell phone. Sorry, Amish. You can use my links down in the description and pinned comment and get a massive bonus pack, including vehicles, boosters, and God knows what else, probably a trip to Vegas or something even better, like 100k silver and limited access to a premium account. It doesn't matter if you've never played the game before or if you're just taking a short 6-month break. All of it's available to you for free with the links below across PC and consoles. Alright, back to the zombie mayhem. I started off day 5 by going zombie to zombie and stripping them of their jeans, long socks, and skirts to use for tailoring XP. I don't know why, but I just assumed I'd be able to find a tailoring book fairly easy, so I figured might as well stock up now. I don't know if this was from Authentic Z or if baggy jeans are in the base game, but one thing I did notice when trimming trousers is that baggy jeans cannot be trimmed, but every other type of jean pants can, which was a bit frustrating to deal with because it doesn't make any sense. Like I said though, it very likely could be part of the Authentic Z mod, so I'm not going to bitch and moan about it too much. It was just something I noticed during this process that caught me off guard. Anyway, the second half of day 5 was centered around revisiting the survivor house that I'd found on day 2. I'd only managed to loot the kitchen before having to flee, so there should be some decent loot hiding in there still for me to find. When all was said and done, I walked away with maintenance 3 and 4 skill books, a metal baseball bat, a firefighter axe, and a few knives. But there was one item that stood above the rest. One cosmetic that I'd risk anything, including the life of my own character for. Judging by the length of this video, it can very clearly be inferred that this scratch turned out to be nothing, so to me, this was entirely worth it. Day 6 would be my first time back in Rosewood since the beginning of the playthrough. Why? Well, because we need a benchmark for how much of a chaotic shitshow this is going to be to deal with. For starters, I wanted to check out the school. Schools have everything from skill books to magazines to non-perishable food like chips and chocolate, to backpacks and other general supplies. The only problem is, it's in the fucking title of the video, so you want to see what it looked like? So, ideally, I can find a way inside, grab whatever I can get my hands on, and find a way to escape. Now, in reality, that was practically impossible, but in my head, I was like, I got this, and then I walked out back. Aside from the literal thousands of zombies in the area, all of the school doors are also locked. meaning the only way in would be if a zombie broke a door, or I'd have to shatter a window and remove the glass. Neither are good options, but that doesn't mean I didn't try. After surviving yet another near-death experience, I just said fuck it and hopped the fence, giving up on the school for now. Today wasn't an entire waste of time though. I mean, I did manage to find an antique oven in one of the nearby houses while trying to lose some zombies. With that marked on the map, I called it a day and began making my way back home, hoping for a better tomorrow. Following the shit show that was day 6, I decided to continue hanging out on the outskirts instead of full sending it back to the school. The plan? Hit up the houses in the north and hopefully add a few more skill books to my collection. Now, did that happen? Kinda. I mean, I did manage to find like 2 or 3, but in reality, most of my day was once again spent slapping zombies with a shovel, or better yet, the handle of a broken shovel. Oh well, maybe tomorrow will be better. Honestly though, my biggest struggle with Build 42 has been that skill books and magazines are impossible to find. I'd gotten so used to just being like, oh, no worries, I'll go door to door and slowly stockpile everything I need. And that's just not the case anymore in Build 42. Now, most of the books are concentrated in bookstores or schools, with the added bonus of finding additional skill books on survival zombies. It's not a good or bad thing though, it's simply just a new way to play the game that's gonna take some time for me to get used to. Okay, new plan. Day 8 means the heli event should be coming any day now, which means I don't want to be sitting around my base waiting for it. So instead, the plan is to hit up the fire station for any axes or supplies that I can gather. That way, if the heli event triggers, it'll feel like a regular day with 16 pop zombies instead of an unwinnable Horde Knight base defense. Of course, I get all the way over there expecting a massive fight, only to find all of the zombies hanging out in the fields to the south of the fire station. Luckily for me, the garage doors to the fire station were partially destroyed, so I was able to sneak right in and loot 3 axes without any real struggle. The only downside of today was I didn't trigger a heli event, which was starting to worry me. Right now, that's my biggest concern. I just want to get that done and over with so I can change my focus to other tasks. Alright, I've got the axes, I've got food to last a few weeks, I've got supplies to build with. Now, all I need is a working vehicle. Back to Rosewood we go. As soon as I got into the city though, I was blessed with the most glorious of sounds. I'll just play a few scenes and you can feel all the feelings with me. So throughout all of this, I did manage to find 4 potential vehicles around the residential area and the church, along with several more in the grocery store parking lot. Thankfully, I managed to find a key for the Dart, but it was out of fuel, meaning we'll need to hit up a gas station before the power goes out. With the gas station completely overrun, I began making my way back home, only to find myself stopping to check out a Jeep I'd seen earlier. While foraging for the key only landed me an Easter card and a cockroach, I did manage to hit it big and find a key inside the house, only for it to be out of fuel. Needing a gas can, I started looting the nearby garages until I got a hold of one. All that's left to do now is make it to the gas station, deal with a few hundred zombies dicking around in the parking lot, grab some fuel, run all the way back, fuel the Jeep, and we're golden. After squatting in one of Rosewood's 2-story houses overnight, I set off for the gas station as the sun rose. Again, this is a big laundry list of shit to get done, but ideally it all gets done today, considering all of it hinges on fueling up the Jeep. The one aspect I completely forgot about, however, was that good high-quality Zomboid migration. See, I just spent an entire day pulling thousands upon thousands of zombies to the northern end of Rosewood, which means the only cells for them to disperse to would be back in the south. Or, in other words, the sole direction I'm coming from. Now, that being said, it all kinda worked out perfectly, since all the zombies hanging around the gas station ended up moving towards the mechanic shop, which then allowed me to sneak in and walk away with 3 liters of fuel for the Jeep. It wasn't much, but it would get the job done. Now to head back, clear out the zombies around the Jeep, and drive off into the sunset. It went down exactly like that, I promise. Shut up. I totally didn't almost end the run by getting it sandwiched between a tree and a few dozen zombies. As it would turn out, day 10 might have been the most chaotic day of the playthrough. After narrowly escaping death and making it to the southern outskirts of the city, I came to the realization that 3 liters would not, in fact, be enough fuel to make it home, let alone to drive halfway across Knox County. So, instead, I opted to try rounding up the zombies at the southern gas station to see if I could repeat the process here. There was only one problem though. With no more fuel, I parked the car down the road and attempted to continue kiting the zombies on foot, which went surprisingly well at the start. I even managed to fill up 4 liters into the gas can. Obviously that wouldn't be enough, but it was a start. It would take one more sweep to fill up the gas can, at which point I drove the Jeep back home and began shredding through all of my collected clothing. Only to find out that scissors can now be dulled to the point where they can't be used anymore. All of that for like 20 XP. Great. Well, I still had over 50 weight in socks and jeans that could be used to be trimmed down to level up tailoring, but without the skill book, it might as well be useless. 20 XP per pair of scissors just isn't worth it for me right now. So, I'll be leaving all of those behind. On the bright side, I managed to hit electrical level 1 that night after dismantling 9 more watches, meaning all I need is 2 levels in mechanics and I can hotwire. Now comes the most difficult part. The trunk was too damaged from my, erratic driving to the point where I can't really put anything else in it. Normally, not the end of the world because you can throw everything in the passenger seat. Unless you have a generator that needs to go there. Meaning, anything I take with me to my next home will have to be whatever fits in my backpack or what can be shoved into my pockets. On the morning of day 11, I made the tough decision to leave most of my gear behind, save for the axes and a few weapons. But 99% of the crafting supplies, most of the perishable foods, and pretty much everything else would be staying in the house. Because of that, I took the morning to cook up most of my perishable foods so I could at least get some use out of it. Even if it only meant loading up on calories before heading out on my next adventure. In classic 16-time pop fashion, the highways were almost entirely clear of zombies. But for whatever reason, the farmhouse I wanted to rest up in needed to have 200 zombies just idling around in the front yard. It's not even like it was just one farmhouse either. This happened multiple times. Eventually, after like 4 houses, I just gave up and found a nice plot of land to hunker down on for the night. It even allowed me to get some hunting in, so I figured I couldn't pass this spot up. So, after finding a few stones for a campfire, I chopped down a tree, butchered a deer, and had a nice dinner by the fire. Day 12 was basically a wash. I overslept and woke up around dinner time. Since there wasn't any real point in trying to push into Ekron today, I figured the best thing I could do for now would be to simply load the new cells, let all the zombies spawn in, and then start migrating throughout the town. That way, when I returned in the morning, it'd be a little easier to navigate. Now that being said, spawns for new cells in a saved playthrough were bricked beyond repair in the current patch, which is 42.9, shout out Indiestone. So not sure exactly how much it'll help. Anyway, to end the day, I got started on First Aid Volume 1. Day 13 was, it was something. For starters, I made it to Ekron at around 6 AM and immediately regretted my decision. I don't think I've ever had Zomboid lag this bad before, but I managed to practically brick the game while it spawned in zombies around me. I went from a steady 60 FPS down to 3 at its worst, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure how the hell I survived this, or how the Jeep didn't just break down instantly. But you know what? I made it to the other side, which has to be the equivalent of doing a coal walk barefoot. Now comes the fun part. Grouping up thousands of zombies and kiting them out into the fields. The biggest problem with that, though, at least in build 42, comes with the random speeds tied to the zombies. You've got fast shamblers, aggroed fast shamblers, regular shamblers, and they all have random perception. So if you start with a group of 100 zombies, by the time you actually kite them to the dump zone, you maybe only have 15 following you. The rest all fall off along the way and are just idling around, and some even started walking back south where they were originally. It's a major pain in the ass compared to build 41, but it's gotta be done, so let's get to work. By around noon, I'd managed to pull away over 300 zombies. Sure, I was dying of thirst and there was no end in sight, but progress was progress. Who needs water when you can just crush 4 sodas? Boogie2988 would be so damn proud. Alright, back to kiting and fighting. That evening, I found a house in the east with only about 20 zombies near it, and figured that'd make for the best place to sleep for the night, considering everywhere else was completely overrun, so I got to work clearing the area. This took several hours, but by nightfall, I was firmly established in my new home. With day 1 of Ekron in the books, it's time to continue the process. Mainly, continuing to kite zombies out into the fields in the distance, and then just pray that Zomboid migration doesn't bend me over. Starting with the church. Now, originally, I wanted this to become my base, but given the fact that all the zombies are flooding on over to it, I'm not sure that's really viable. Actually, nowhere is really viable. Even for something like a fishing pole, you're required to hunt to make twine so that you can craft one. Sure, I could go find one, but given that every single house has no less than, 500 zombies sitting outside of them, it's just not feasible at the moment. So I'm left with 2 options. I can go back to Ekron and waste my time pulling zombies out and around, or I can try something else. So with that, I headed back to the small town with the plan of giving it a fair shot. The problem right now is the caloric deficit Steamy Ray Vaughn is stuck in. I don't want to complain too much about it, because I 100% did it to myself, but here's the layout. The best course of action is to fish for food. I can't fish because I don't have a fishing pole. To craft a fishing pole, I'll need supplies like paper clips, nails, and twine. Most of these items require me to loot houses and towns, or farm animals to craft said twine and bone hooks. The next option is cows, which can be killed for butter and steaks. The problem with that is every farmhouse I've located so far has no less than at least 200 zombies at them, which is too many to clear out. That being said, it does feel like my only real chance is to luck into a fishing pole or find some farmland with expendable cows. After a good night's rest, I woke up on the morning of day 15 and began making my way southeast in search of some cows. I think at least most of the channel OGs knew it was only a matter of time before we ended up here. I've missed this farmhouse, even if it's loaded with zombies. Alright, well, I guess it was only fitting that this becomes my new base, so shall we? I'm gonna be honest here, I've fully used and abused the fences, which I think is exactly what you need to do in these situations. Just take it slow, pull a couple zombies at a time, and slowly but surely work your way through each pocket of zombies, backing off and resting in between each one so that you don't exert yourself. Don't worry, there's another near-death experience here, which was totally 100% skill and not at all complete luck based on the first shove run animation completely failing and sucking me into zombies, while the second shove run animation phased me directly through the zombies. Totally not janky luck, I promise. Anyway, the fence sitting method took me all the way up until about 11 PM, at which point it was finally safe enough to enter the farmhouse, cook up a burger, and head to sleep upstairs. It is worth noting here that the janky shove run mechanic has been patched in the newest, I think it's 42.10. Probably by the time this video comes out, another patch will have addressed it, but it is fixed now. You no longer hook with zombies anymore, you shove run the same way you did in build 41. Day 16 was a giant repeat of the previous day. There's still about 6 pockets of zombies to work through in the immediate area, so my sole focus for now is on clearing them out as quickly as possible. By 11 a.m., I'd cleared out the entire southern portion of the farm and managed to reclaim the pigs, rabbits, and sheep in the area. I was hoping for cows, but I'm optimistic that pigs will get the job done. That being said, the job's not finished yet. There's still a few dozen zombies hanging around that need to be taken care of, so that's what I spent the rest of the day doing. The farm officially reclaimed, I spent the evening taking stock of my animals. I have 1 male pig and at least 4 females, a couple of goats, and some domesticated rabbits. On the other side of the farm, I have 1 cock, nice, 7 hens, and 1 chick. On the morning of day 17, I embraced the farming arc I said I would never do, and harvested a ton of chicken eggs. After cooking them, they provide me a whopping 70 calories, so I won't be able to survive solely on eggs, but it'll at least keep me partially fed for now. I'll just need to find something to mix them with. The biggest downside right now is that the pigs are all dying of thirst, so I need to find a bucket or a pan, just something that'll allow me to transfer water over from the well. On the bright side, this did lead to me exploring the surrounding farms where I found a herd of cows that I can bring back to my farm once the area is secure. While I couldn't find a bucket, I did manage to find a watering can, which holds 8 liters and will get the job done all the same. I'll come back for the cows tomorrow though. For now, my sole focus is on keeping the chickens and pigs alive. Of course, as soon as I make it back and start watering my pigs so that they can blossom into a beautiful pig tree, it started fucking raining. Oh well, at least I have the watering can still. Well, since it's raining, I figured now would be a great time to head back out and try to collect my Jeep. I know for a fact I have rope in either the Jeep or in the pile of junk left in that open plot of land. With that rope, I can bring the cows on over, and then I'll be a full-on Farmer Brown. Just how I left it. Unfortunately, there were too many zombies to refuel the Jeep with, and a canteen full of gas will only get you so far. There's just simply too many zombies for me to risk it, so instead, I opted to begin driving back towards the farm with the hopes of making it back with all of the supplies in the Jeep before it died. Day 18 was more maintenance work than anything. I spent the morning transferring all of my Jeep junk into crates in the farmhouse with plans to go through it all that evening. Once that was taken care of, it was out into the field to the south to clear out any pockets of remaining zombies. That was after I dealt with the runaway pig, of course. With most of the zombies cleared out, I was able to scoop up the antique oven hidden in the shed over here and bring it back to the farmhouse. Now, I'll still have a way to cook food even after the power goes out. So I have 2 things I need to get done, ideally within the next 2 days. For starters, I need to go back and pick up all of my gear that I left over in that field a few days ago. That'll be a full day's hike there and back, but should be relatively simple. The second mark on the to-do list is to head back east and round up all those cows, which will inevitably require me to fight through hundreds of zombies. Something that should be doable once I recover all of my gear. All of this is just a weird rambled mess for me to say I spent all of day 19 running back to a field, picking my supplies up, and then bringing them back to the farm. Today's the day. Today, we free the cows. First things first, dealing with all the zombies in the area. There are hundreds. Thousands? Hundreds. Fuck it. But luckily for me, they're mostly scattered into smaller pockets of 10 to 20, which means I can fall back on the fence method and slowly work my way through them. This, in turn, took most of the day to accomplish, but I was able to level up my strength, so that was cool. Now that being said, by the end of the day I'd managed to clear the southern portion of that farm and even brought my first cow back to the farm. This continued into day 21 as well, with me making several trips to and from the eastern farm in order to collect their cows and bring them back to their new homes. In total, I managed to rescue 4 cows, one of which was able to be milked, which is great for me since I need all the food I can get right now. With my farm now housing 4 new cows, I should be able to cultivate a rather unhealthy supply of beef. But I didn't want to rush into the whole milking thing since, I didn't even have a chance to buy them dinner first. So instead, I opted for the next best strategy, slaughtering their remaining friends and family at the original farm. It was only after butchering 2 cows on the floor that I was reminded, hey dumbass, go craft a butchering hook. So, here you go. Yep, you happy now? There is to be no Steamy Ravon slander ever again, until you can simply pick up a fully grown adult cow and walk back like it's no problem. Your criticisms mean nothing to me. Once on the hook, you have a plethora of options, including bleeding the cow, harvesting its meat, paws, gathering leather from it, or for Dahmer supporters watching this, cutting off its head is also an option. Now, I don't know if it was just the fact that I'm a better butcher now than I was before, or if the hook did make that much of a difference, but not only did I get more meat, the quality was also increased on some of the cuts. Alright, it's time. And you know what? I have something to announce. Something to show you that'll shake you to your core. This is what America was founded on. I'm here to confirm that yes, you can milk a cow with a watering can. And not just once, but twice. With our 7.5 liters of milk, I crafted a butter churn out of 2 planks and 2 nails because that's all you need for some reason, and got to work churning some butter. The only downside with this is that the devs haven't added the animation for some reason. Fucking cowards. The players yearn for the animation, Indie Stone. Please give it to us. Anyway, with my weight now holding up an up arrow for the first time in like 2 weeks, I didn't want to overwork myself, so I spent the rest of the day reading a ton of magazines and some Volume 1 skill books I had lying around. We're now 24 days in, and the power is still on, which is a good thing, but it also means that we're running on borrowed time. I need to hit Electrical 3 as fast as possible, which means I'm going to need the Volume 2 skill book. It also means that I'm going to have to fight some more to gather more watches. Considering this is 16 Pop Zomboid, there's no shortage of enemies to fight, and considering there's a small neighborhood just to the north of me, I have my next target. After I churn some more butter, of course. While making my way to the neighborhood, I stumbled upon a group of zombies, one of which was carrying a backpack filled with skill books. Sadly, none of them were what I needed, but it was still cool to see something like that and have reassurance that, if nothing else, you can simply brute force zombies to get the skill books you'd like. Onto the houses though. It's pretty similar to how fighting has gone throughout the playthrough. Bait the zombies through a window and funnel them into you one at a time, or rely on fencing to do the heavy lifting. Regardless of the method, the job gets done, which is all that matters. Well, that, and the rewards that come with looting the house, like food and electrical level 2. Due to the amount of zombies in the area, I was able to hit 3 of the houses on day 24. So naturally, this grind continued into day 25 as well. Before that though, I managed to make 2 sticks of butter out of all the cow's milk that I had been hoarding, and for the first time since week 1, I'd managed to get the double up arrow going on Steamy Ravon's weight status. Anyway, here's some more fighting and looting. To end the day, I finally built a door to replace the destroyed remains of the one in the kitchen. It was only after I entered a shed that I experienced something that I have, in my thousands of hours of playtime, never before had the pleasure of enduring. For whatever reason, Steamy Ravon, after lacking free will for almost a full month, decided to just stop his fucking swing animation for 4 seconds while I held the mouse button down, allowing the zombie to leave him a nasty right arm laceration. Now guys, I know it's a skill issue because I was dumb enough to nosedive through the window. But I have never once had this happen where my character, despite me holding down the mouse button, just completely fucking gives up and stops swinging. Howdy, post-editing TGP here. This has been allegedly fixed in the 42.10 update, but they also said they fixed the chicken bomb back in like January, and that's still in the game, so take it with a grain of salt. Naturally, this wound became infected, which scared the shit out of me. So trying to keep happy thoughts going, I figured I could simply rub a box of disinfectant wipes on it and I'd be good. Right, guys? Day 26 was really all about keeping myself occupied. I milked the cows, made some butter, read Cooking Volume 2, and even made a mean steak stir fry. Let's go. No! Honestly, the power going off is an afterthought to me. The fact that the wound was no longer infected and I was going to be okay was the big thrill of the day. Everything else was secondary. The goal now is to hit Electrical 3 as fast as possible, which means I need that skill book or the generator magazine. I'd take either at this point, but I need one. So with that in mind, I set off south, hitting up the farms to hopefully find a few skill books while in search of a bucket or two for stockpiling milk. Worst case, I'll survive purely off of butter, but in a perfect world, we'd have some steak with our butter. What followed, though, was one of the dumbest plays I've ever tried in Project Zomboid. I don't know if it was just the stream vibes or if I really am this stupid, but for whatever reason, I thought it'd be a fantastic idea to self-sacrifice for a damn watering can, narrowly escaping death by diving through a window and shoving shards of glass through my hand and neck. Somehow, I not only survived that whole debacle with no deep wounds, but I also managed to shove through a pile of zombies and walk away still breathing. Only for my game to crash as soon as I made it back to the farm. So what caused the crash, you might ask? Well, I think it'd be better if I just showed you. It gets better. What if I told you this was allegedly patched back in January of 2025? Don't worry though, not only am I now stuck in a perennial state of 1 FPS, but the debug menus don't help at all. The only way to fix this, and I do mean only way, is to select the debug option from the floor and fully remove all animals in the loaded cells, which sadly included most of my cows and pigs. That being said, I do know how to spawn in more, so I was able to add in a few more cows and pigs to recoup my losses, but that still leaves one issue. I've just cut my milk supply in half, because out of all 4 cows, only 1 made it through, meaning I need to respawn 3 more, and when that happens, they all need to pop out babies to unlock the ability to be milked. What I'm trying to say is, not only did this crash my game, and not only did I need to spend almost a full real-life hour cleaning up a supposedly fixed bug, but it also cost me my primary food supply in the process. Neat. That's the past though, it's on to day 29, and what better way to get your day started than with a cheeseburger for breakfast? Just don't ask why a burger patty and cooked ground beef aren't considered the same type of meat. My best guess is that the Brits just don't understand the concept of smash burgers, but I won't hold that against them seeing as they eat beans for breakfast. Anyway, the big goal for today is to reach the military surplus store in the west. Not only is there an armory in there with guns and ammo, but I should also be able to walk away with a hiking bag, a tent, and some other camping supplies. There was one big change that came with day 29 though. Update 42.10. This patch would fix most of the isolated area spawns that 42.9 broke, which means we shouldn't have to worry about 500 zombies being spawned in at a random barn in a field anymore. And it's something you could tell immediately, considering I walked up to a set of houses and only found like 10 zombies in the parking lot waiting for me. Initially, I was worried that my sandbox settings might have been reset with the update, but I was quickly reassured after spawning in some new cells and seeing an army waiting for me at the barns. That evening, I found a house fairly close to the surplus store and got to work clearing it out to serve as a temporary base while I made runs to and from the store in the morning. Obviously, dealing with over 100 zombies at a singular house isn't the most efficient way to go about things, but I needed the watches. So, thanks to the help of caffeine pills, I was able to fight through the night and into the morning of day 30. And it's at this point that I have to ask, what exactly did they fix in 42.10? According to the patch notes, they addressed a ton of the animation issues related to targeting zombies in groups like this, but I'm still targeting the wrong zombie when fighting. I'm still swinging normally but hitting zombies lying on the floor. I'm still floor-shotting zombies that are standing directly in front of me. They're still randomly falling backwards when nothing else impacts them. It all just feels a bit misleading when we're told this is fixed, and then the next day I hop on and it's still very clearly not fixed. Anyway, I was able to push into the house just before sunrise and finally head to bed. There's still a few zombies out front, but I'll worry about them after I wake up. And by that, I mean we'll avoid them and hope they eventually move away. For now, it's on to the surplus store. Speaking of the surplus store, isn't it lovely? I know, it's been so long since we've been at a POI that you probably forgot what 16 pop looked like. Clearly I can't fight my way through them, at least not yet. Maybe in a few hundred days though. For now, I just tried to focus on keeping my escape lanes clear. Since rushing head-on into the POI would be a death sentence, the next best option would be to approach it from the quietest side. As I pushed up to the gas station, I noticed it was actually fairly abandoned, which allowed me to deal with the two inside and climb in through the window to find none other than a generator magazine sitting in wait for me. This alone makes the entire multi-day journey worth it in my opinion. Sure, I didn't get a better backpack or nomad supplies or any guns, but I will have power again, provided I can reach a gas station pump. It would take until almost 5 AM on day 31 to even make it back to the temporary base. After a good night's rest, or rather good morning's rest, I spent the rest of the day marching my happy ass back to the farm. I'm sure the cows and pigs have missed me and won't at all be mortified by the sight of a bloodied lunatic emerging from the tree line. After several days away from the farm, I spent day 32 getting back into the swing of things, hitting animal husbandry level 3 while milking the cows, and then turning all of that into butter to stop my weight from plummeting. I also went ahead and siphoned the rest of my fuel from the Jeep, only to end up with a few drops that won't be of much use to me. Guess that'll be next on the to-do list. There's only one problem. I may have forgotten the generator magazine back at the temporary base. God damn it. Needless to say, all of day 33 was spent running to and from the temp base. At least I have the magazines now. So, we've got the magazines. What's next? Well, we need fuel still. And to get fuel, we need to siphon it from cars. So, Rosewood? Why the hell not? Sure, it'll take a literal day to make it there, but I've got caffeine pills and a flashlight, so there isn't much to worry about. I mean, aside from the thousands and thousands of zombies roaming the town. By the time I'd called it quits for the day, I'd managed to haul in over 5 liters of fuel. That should be more than enough to get me a working car, drive to a smaller gas station, and fill up a generator to get the pumps working. Instead of heading back though, I made my way southeast, back to a familiar starting home, just to rest up for the night. There's one location that I really wanted to double check for a working vehicle. The gas station in the south, where I spent some time kiting around zombies to fuel up the Jeep like 3 weeks ago. I couldn't remember if there were cars there or not, but I figured anywhere is better than the middle of the overrun town. Better yet, how about the drive-in movie theater? I can't believe I never thought of this place earlier when I was living out here. Where else would you expect to find some cars if not at a drive-in movie theater? After finding a pretty decent van, I spent a few hours siphoning all of the fuel out of the nearby cars before ripping this bad boy out onto the highway. Since I was already out here though, it made perfect sense to me to hit up my old base to loot all of the shit I was forced to leave behind almost 30 days ago. Mainly the tools and random oddities, but it was a nice trip down memory lane. The biggest holdup right now is fuel, or lack thereof. There's a gas station in the south that I'm interested in hitting up, since it's so far removed from any town or city that the spawns there should be manageable. But to get there, I'll have to pass through Rosewood again. Instead of trying to knock it all out in one day, I opted to make half the journey on the first day, stopping at the military barracks just north of Rosewood, at which point I would enter the city, siphon more fuel, and then hop back in the car the following morning to finish the drive. We'll see how it goes though. For now, my focus is just on making sure I get there in one piece. The main driveway in the north of the farm is overgrown and loaded with wreckage and zombies, so to make life a bit easier, I opted to clear a path on the southeast that would connect to the main highway, and then use that as my new driveway instead of the original. After clearing a path, I rounded up all the tree branches and knocked out carving level 4 by doing nothing other than crafting knitting needles. These give me just under 70 XP per needle, since I have a 125% XP boost on top of Fast Learner, making it the most efficient way for me to level up right now. With that out of the way, it's time to make the drive back to Rosewood. Unfortunately, the army barracks were completely infested with zombies. Shocker, I know. So instead of basing there for the night, I continued south until the van ran out of gas next to a few cornfields. Not wanting to catch a feature in the next Jeepers Creepers movie, I instinctively locked the doors and drifted off to sleep. The next morning, I proceeded into Rosewood on foot. The sole goal of today is to obtain enough fuel to get the van to that gas station in the south. If 3 liters got me this far, I should only need 5 or so to make it the rest of the way. Something that should be easily doable if I play my cards right. By mid-afternoon, I'd managed to accumulate 5 whole liters of fuel, which would have to do. Obviously, the biggest difficulty spike of this playthrough is the sheer inaccessibility of major cities, at least early on, making this an incredibly difficult feat. Who knew something as simple as siphoning fuel from cars would take an entire in-game day to accomplish? Day 38 marked the second half of the journey. Equipped with 5 liters of fuel, I made my way west of Rosewood, ripped through a back road, and found myself sputtering out of fuel just a few blocks from the gas station. Instead of carrying the generator the rest of the distance though, I opted to scout ahead on foot. No sense in reaching the gas station exhausted if I still need to fight my way through it. See what I mean? Best option here? A Molotov. I have 0.4 liters of fuel, and I need 1 full liter, so that option isn't looking great. My best bet here was to start looting the homes and farms in the area in search of a rogue liquor bottle or beer bottle. Never mind. Maybe the resort in the south. Yeah, I probably should have expected that. At this point, I was so discouraged, I was contemplating just giving up on the run, which I know sounds dramatic, but it's the truth. That evening, while checking the houses in the south, I set my sights on one and got to work clearing it out. Worst case, I could sleep here tonight and come up with another plan in the morning. While I didn't find any booze, I did manage to get a good night's sleep in. Luck was on our side on day 39, as I found a sealed beer bottle in the trunk of a wrecked car. Meaning, we can make fire now. Or so I thought. See, for whatever reason, you need 1 full liter of alcohol. Beer bottles only hold 300 milliliters. So, even with a full beer bottle and a rag, you cannot make a Molotov. Well, if it isn't an artificial problem created from something that was originally working as intended. Shocker. Now, on the off chance you do want to actually, I don't know, make a Molotov, you need 2 bottles now. In this example, I have a bottle of tequila, right? Fancy. Well, that's just the alcohol needed. You actually need an additional empty bottle to pour the tequila into, instead of, you know, just using the fucking bottle. Let's just get back to the video before I lose what little sanity I have left. God knows they've already taken my patience. To compensate for the aneurysm, Chad awarded me with a Molotov of my own, so we're able to continue the grind. And by grind, I mean arson. By 11 p.m. that evening, I tacked on over 200 kills or so, bringing me up to 1,500 while taking out most of the zombies around the gas station. Heading into day 40, the goal was to secure said gas station. While most of the zombie horde had been cleansed with fire, I still had pockets roaming around that needed to be dealt with before I could carry the generator on over. Even after spending the morning fighting my way through, there were still too many pockets to risk turning on the generator, so I connected it, added fuel, and rested before getting back to work. With most of the zombies cleared out, I finally turned on the generator and, for the first time this playthrough, fueled up at a gas station. Now all that's left to do is bring the van over, kill the remaining zombies, fuel up, and get the hell back to the farm. Day 41 was something special, mainly because it was the start of a month-long base building project. See, base building is something that I haven't really messed with in Build 42 yet, so I figured what better time to do that than now. Right off the bat, the first issue I encountered was the fact that you no longer have the ability to continue chopping trees when fully exhausted. You now have to rest in between sessions, which is only going to prolong the deforestation effort. Instead of taking a day or two to chop down all the trees, it's now going to take upwards of a week. To help mitigate the downtime, I did end up moving one of the kitchen chairs out into the yard to speed up resting. Not sure how much it actually helped, but I like to think it played a factor. Oh, and one more thing. You can no longer earn maintenance XP from chopping down trees. What have they done to the game I love? In between chopping trees and resting, I would end each night and start each morning with some light reading. I figured, if nothing else, I might as well continue burning through the skill book collection I'd been accumulating. So, as it turns out, manually swinging an axe at a tree gives you some maintenance XP, just not the action of cutting down a tree, okay? Again, not sure why that needed to be changed, but they either forgot to apply that to the regular swings as well, or deliberately made this change for what I'm sure they consider incredibly sound and foolproof logic. Regardless, I'm not about to extend my tree chopping endeavors for multiple weeks just for some maintenance scraps, but such is life. And so, for the next several days, I would wake up, milk the cows, churn some butter, and then chop trees until my limbs were about to fall off. Once I achieved max exertion, I'd run to the wooden chair and continue on with my skill book grind. Except for day 44. This one was the exception because I learned that you can't use clothing for sheet rope anymore. Instead, you need actual sheets or curtains. So with that newly acquired knowledge, I set back out to the neighborhood in the north to grab up any curtains I could get my hands on. It's not a huge deal or anything. I was still able to find 8 curtains to turn into sheet rope, and even walked away with a new grill. So I guess you could say it was a pretty alright day. After 5 days of doing nothing but chopping down trees, I ended on day 46. At least for now. I can always go back if I need more logs. Starting on day 47, I got to work piling up all my logs into what would become an outline of the log wall I planned on building. Here's my general plan. I'll start with a log wall around the northern section of the farmhouse. I still need a ton of ripped sheets to actually build it, but that'll come later. For now, I'm just focused on getting the outline completed. To build off of that, I'm planning on laying down wooden flooring to effectively create a new driveway in the south. This should prevent any bushes and trees from growing over it, allowing me to drive through cleanly without issue. The main predicament is simply the fact that this is a massive undertaking, and I approached it like an idiot, figuring I could knock the whole thing out in like 10 days, but here we are. Guys, when I tell you I spent 7 days doing nothing but picking up logs and branches, oh my god. And there's still probably dozens of sticks and branches out there that I missed. After wasting damn near 20 days doing nothing but chopping down trees and gathering up resources, I grabbed every knife I had available, stacked all the twigs into neat little bundles, and proceeded to move each resource into its own dedicated pile. We're talking hundreds, if not thousands, of twigs, saplings, branches, large branches, and wood splinters. So if you're wondering if this really did take an entire day, yes it did. And finally, after all the prep work was laid out, all the painstaking hours of stacking piles of shit together, I woke up on day 55, queued up 100 knitting needles, and watched my carving XP explode. Now, I did go ahead and carve 2 buckets after hitting level 5, and while I'm sure they'll be helpful when it comes to milking the cows, they gave the exact same amount of XP as a pair of knitting needles, at a way more intensive resource cost. So while I no longer have to rely on storing my milk in watering cans, I don't think it's a viable method to grind out levels with. I hit carving level 6 on the afternoon of day 56, while still having hundreds of tree branches to work with. I need level 7 to make short bats and level 9 to make actual baseball bats, which is the goal. So with that, it was back to grinding knitting needles. The next day, I hit carving 7, meaning I can finally start crafting short bats out of those large branches. Not only do those bad boys give 150 XP per bat, but they obviously double as solid short blunt weapons. And on top of that, I can use some tin cans, screws, and a few rags and reinforce said short bats. I can see the vision with the crafting menu, and I want to love it so badly, I really do. I like how you can use multiple skills and combine them to make higher quality weapons, like perfect example with the bats. You need carving 7 to make the bat, but if you have carpentry 2, you can reinforce it, and that expands out as you continue leveling both skills. Like, this all makes sense, and I love the building blocks that are there, but it needs a ton of work still. But that's what makes me crash out on videos like this, because given their track record, it's much more likely that this stays as is or gets slight, moderate fixes over the next year before being left behind for the next new feature. And that's what sucks. But hopefully, just this once, we can get a solid crafting menu when it's all said and done. The grind continued well into day 58, with me crafting almost 50 short bats to use in combat. So, time for a new problem. Honestly, it's a bit funny to talk about because looking back to earlier in the playthrough when I was panicking about starving to death, well, in a complete 180, we're now rapidly approaching morbid obesity. We're practically speedrunning Heart Attack Simulator, and we need to fix that. But I guess that's the problem you sign up for when your primary food is literal sticks of butter. There are some houses in the north that I wanted to check out, and I figured that way I can burn some calories fighting through the zombies, and it also gives me a chance to try out my new short bat weapons, while simultaneously farming zombies for rags, which I need for the fence. And hopefully I can get some low-cal food cans for the run. As it turns out though, not only did I get unlucky with one house, but every fucking house on this block was already looted. You can tell by the garbage on the floor. So I just wasted an entire day of fighting for one single pack of dried apricots. With most of the zombie hordes dealt with, I knocked out in one of the houses I'd already liberated, determined to continue in the morning. Much like the previous day, I spent most of my time fighting through waves of zombies, only to discover a single saltine cracker on a shelf. So in total, after 2 days of scavenging the area, I walked away with 2 items for a total of -9 hunger. On the bright side, at least I'll get to walk away with a ton of ripped sheets. Has it been long enough to complain again? Why did we remove the rip all function from the right click menu? Why is that now relegated unsuccessfully to the crafting menu? And when I mean unsuccessfully, I mean it doesn't work as intended. I can only rip a max of 1 clothing at a time because it has to match that specific article of clothing, at least at the time of recording. There is no way, again, at the time of recording, to combine both a skirt and a shirt into a rip queue from the crafting menu that, not to mention, takes up between 1 and 2/3 of your screen. Why would anyone do that when they can just right-click the clothing option and queue up articles of clothing to rip instead? It's not only way more efficient, but you can queue up any item on the taskbar and also takes up much less of your screen, unlike the crafting menu. On my way back to the farm, I came across another group of zombies, but was too tired and exerted to really put up much of a fight. So instead, I opted to drop the gear where it was and come back for it in the morning. It's not worth trying to just brute force my way through them when I'm only hitting for like 2 damage per swing right now. And that's without factoring in the carrying capacity situation. See? Easy work. Okay, it's been, what, 20 days? It's time to finally get started on the log walls. I don't think I have enough ripped sheets yet to construct the entire perimeter, but it should be enough to get a good section or 2 in. By the end of day 61, I'd managed to almost complete the northern wall, aside from a few gaps here and there. Tomorrow, I should be able to knock out the entire south and west walls, practically completing the build. Well, that is, unless you run out of rags, in which case, oof. So how do we solve this dilemma? Well, it's been a while since Phallus Lake. Wanna go check it out again? After getting a solid 3 hours of sleep, I packed the van and began the drive northwest towards Phallus Lake. At 5:30 on September 9th, the battle for Dick Pond began. I started on the western street leading into town with the goal of looting the houses as I cleared them, only to once again be bamboozled with spices and vinegar instead of actual canned food, because apparently no one in Kentucky eats real food anymore. At least I still have an excuse to hoard rags, though. By the time the sun set on day 63, I'd managed to loot 3 houses for a single potato and a can of tuna. Better than nothing, I guess. In stark contrast to 63, I spent all of day 64 back at the farm clearing all the bushes and trees that had begun to overtake the property. It's a pain in the ass, but if I don't do it now, it'll only continue to slow me down in the future. Day 65 saw me back at the entrance to Ekron, duking it out with more zombies. I don't really have a plan here, to be honest. There's simply too many zombies to fight through Main Street with, so I guess I was just hoping to thin them out before pushing into some of the more favorable shops, such as the gardening store housing a full armory, and the hardware store for some extra weapons. If nothing else, it was an excuse to look a 16-pop overrun town straight through and take it on head-to-head. No guns, no Molotovs, just a few handcrafted short bats reinforced with tin cans, spit, and happy thoughts. Not endings, shout out Robert Kraft. There was really only one holdup here. One painstaking problem, putting a strain on my goals. Thankfully, there's a bar nearby for me to drown my misery in. Just gotta fight through the crowd at the front first. While I did find some pickles, pork rinds, and other snack-based foods, I didn't walk away with anything tangible. But I guess that's to be expected from a small-town bar. There's also a car in a pretty solid condition out front. Just need some fuel, which I have sitting around back at the farmhouse. Clearing the first home on the block also provided me with a jar of cabbages and some canned food. If I do this right, I should be able to drop below 85 weight by the 13th, which would help a ton with fighting since I won't be out of breath every 15 seconds. One last thing for today. I've opted to start looting the clothes instead of ripping them right away. Instead, if I bring them back, I'm able to farm out more tailoring XP by cutting up the socks, shirts, skirts, and whatever else I find, and then I can rip the rest of the rags. Here's what I mean. With a crop top, I can use scissors to shorten it so Steamy Ray Vaughan can be a little scandalous next June, only to decide I don't like the color and subsequently rip it up. Not only do I retain that tailoring XP from before, but now I get the rags I desperately needed to finish up the walls. After spending all of day 66 ripping up clothing, it was back to the walls. While most of the perimeter is secure, there were still some gaps in each major section, meaning we needed more logs to fill those in. Now instead of continuing that route east though, I focused on the trees inside the animal pens. For some reason, the cows love to get lost in them, and above all else, they're just kind of an eyesore for me. If you want a technical reason, it gives the animals a few more tiles of grass to eat from, so if anything, it's helping everyone. And, it finally happened. I did what most 600-pound life contestants can't do, and beat morbid obesity. I know, I am very brave. Who would have guessed that, just getting outside and eating a little less would actually work? This inevitably bled into days 68 and 69, nice, where it was back to creating stacks of logs, placing them by the holes in the log walls, and repeating that process until well after the sunset. Once all the main holes had logs at them, I piled the rest up where my new driveway was to be built. That way, when I'm ready to get started on it, I can just saw all of those logs down in a day, and get to work placing the flooring on the next. Day 70 was the big finish the goddamn wall day. And even then, we technically can't finish it until we find a sledgehammer, so I can get rid of that overhanging fence in the east. But at least for now, it'll be finished up to what we're capable of. Day 71, it was back to my Farmer Brown lifestyle, milking the cows, churning butter, and picking up literal shit from the floor. Since it was still raining on day 72, I didn't want to risk catching a cold while fighting back at Ekron, so I opted to spend the day catching up on various skill books I'd collected so far. And by that, I mean I spent almost 24 hours reading Maintenance Volume 3. Shout out Slow Reader. Same case with day 73. Thunderstorms aren't the vibe right now, so I worked out in the farm during the morning, picking up sticks and sorting everything into piles, before spending the afternoon reading more skill books. Something amazing happened on day 74 though, and players who have been in the unstable branch for longer have probably been losing their shit watching this video up until this point, but I found a way to stay full to bursting while also losing weight. Oh Zeb, milk! Canteens of milk. At 1.5 liters, they take you from starving to death to full to bursting, while still keeping you in the negatives for losing weight. You gotta love it. Anyway, it's finally done raining, so welcome back to Ekron. Just kidding, I ran over more bunnies. Now, welcome back to Ekron. I don't even really need to be here. At this point, I'm just out here fighting for the love of the game. But you know what? I do really love it. And you know what they say. If you love something, beat that dead horse until you burn yourself out to the point of having to take a year off of it. Or something like that. Oh, also, shout out Ret for hopping into the stream to teach me that I don't need to use the spacebar for animation canceling. At least in build 42, now you can just use E, which is way more effective. So, thank you, Ret. Everyone go watch his videos. He's incredibly underrated and pumps out very informative breakdowns on Zomboid mechanics. Anyway, towards the end of the day, I maxed my first skill of the playthrough. Light-footed. Totally the one you were thinking of, right? After spending the night in one of the previously liberated houses, I made my way back into town and picked up where I left off. I even managed to loot a few more houses and reach the bookstore. I say reach the bookstore and not looted because, just roll the clips. By the end of the day, I'd burned through all of my reinforced short bats, at which point I opted to head back to the farm and craft some more. I still had over a dozen regular short bats, but there's clearly no reason to use them anymore when the reinforced bats can handle like double the amount of zombies before breaking. While driving home that night, Ret dropped some more Build 42 knowledge on me, informing me that I should be using something like long blunt or long blade since the base damage is so high that sharpness doesn't matter. There's just one issue. Swords require welding 6 and 8 to make, and well, I haven't touched that skill yet, period, let alone blacksmithing in general, so maybe that's something I push towards in later installments. While I don't have any experience in blacksmithing, I made a plan to focus on that in a few weeks, but it's totally not because I just spent weeks hoarding all these tree branches to turn into blunt weapons. No, it couldn't be that. So, sticking with this newfound information, I was determined to max carving. That way, I can at least make regular baseball bats, which should do more work for me than the short bats. What I'm trying to get at here is it's time for another 100 knitting needles. It's so beautiful. So according to the Zomboid code reader himself, long blunt is the play. And you know what? I'm taking his word for it. If there was ever someone I trust with this kind of shit, it's the guy whose name spelled backward makes me giggle. Time to try these bad boys out. Alright, not bad, not bad. It's worth mentioning that I'm only long blunt level 3, so the expectations should be slightly limited compared to being a few swings away from level 6 with short blunt. So with that in mind, I opted to swap back to the short bats to finish off the next level. So we have a bit of a problem here. The van is, well, it's seen better days. Now, the Jeep is a little better, at least in terms of engine condition, but not by much. There's that blue car over by the bar in Faust Lake, though, so the plan today is to clear the main road heading over there, and then take the Jeep out to swap it for higher conditioned cars. So let's get to work. The main road west is covered with zombies from the neighborhood just north of me. Since they've been respawning, they tend to migrate to the nearby cells, all congregating in these big walls of corpses that take up huge chunks of the road and make it incredibly dangerous to navigate. Especially with a shitbox where the engine could just give out at any moment. So before I do anything else, I wanted to at least thin their numbers out. This ended up spilling into day 79 as well, but honestly, I think it was worth it. The roads are mostly cleared now, and I managed to tack on an extra 170 kills with the baseball bats. After 2 days of cleaning up the streets, it's time to trade in a Jeep for a 4-door car. Hopefully. Guess it all depends on if any zombies from the northern portion of the town migrated south. Judging by the road, though, I'm not optimistic. It took until late morning before the area around the bar was safe enough to begin fueling the blue car. And just like that, new whip. And it's in pretty solid condition, too. The big downside to the car is, look at how painful it becomes to drive off-road now. If there was ever a time to get started on the driveway, now would be it. So, on day 81, I grabbed a saw and got to work converting all of the extra logs into planks. Remember when you used to be able to just right-click and select all? That was cool. I miss those days. That's not going to be enough. Well, let's see how far we get on it. The goal here isn't to chunk massive sections of it, but instead to lay out the blueprint for what I'd like the finished product to be. Especially if it's at a downward angle. I'll always have to be adding an extra section and cutting off the one above. So if I can just get a rough outline of how it should look, I can always come back in the future and clean it up. By the time I'd called it quits on day 82, I'd managed to level up carpentry twice, bringing me to level 8. And when I ran out of planks on day 83, I'd managed to get most of the outline completed. Now all I need to do is piss off the Lorax and find some more nails. Queue up a 2-day agenda of chopping trees, sawing them into planks, and it's like we never left. After maxing the carpentry skill, I finally ran out of nails on day 88. But here's the progress so far. I have the gate placed, along with a start to the flooring around it. The rough outline is fully placed, and I've even started working towards filling out the middle portion. There's still a ton of work to be done on it, no doubt, but I'm happy with the start. With the remaining few hours of daylight, I moved all of the looted clothes inside and farmed out the first level of tailoring. Sure, it only took almost 100 days, but we did it. I kicked off day 88 by finishing Maintenance Volume 4, meaning I'm currently on pace to have my maintenance skill be the first combat skill I max. Which is just an insane sentence to say out loud. That afternoon, I reinforced one of my crafted baseball bats, so I'll be interested to see how it performs. If it's anything like the short bats, this should last for close to 100 kills before it starts to wear down, which would be awesome. Day 89 was supposed to be a day of combat, fighting my way through hordes of the undead in hopes of retaking Ekron, but instead, I woke up to this. Not wanting to catch a cold, I opted to stay inside and keep pounding away at skill books. This continued into day 90 as well, because of course it did. At least this way, almost all of my skill books are done and over with now. Well, the volume 1s, I guess. Day 91 saw me driving back to Ekron with a goal of pushing through Main Street and eventually raiding the hardware store for some precious nails. It's a bit weird when the goal of a raid is nails. Like, I don't think I've ever had a shortage of them before, so this was new to me. But hey, anything's better than reading skill books to avoid the rain, right? You know what else is better than that? Sadly, you can't just throw a deer carcass in the backseat of your car though, so instead, I marked them on the map with plans to come back once I found a knife to butcher them with. You know, sometimes I forget that this small town is completely overrun. I don't know why I'm surprised by it though. Like, I mean, we all know what the video is. But still, it does suck that after days of fighting here, I can't even make it halfway down the main road. We're going to need more firepower. A reinforced bat just isn't gonna cut it here. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the plan. Car safe, horn loud, throw fire, big fire, fire spread, car loud, pull zombies, fire spread, win. There's only one downside that comes with this playstyle, and unfortunately, when you find yourself focused solely on zombies, you fail to remember that sometimes all it takes is for you to scratch your foot through a pair of boots on a bush. But hey, come on guys, it's an unstable build of an early access game. We have to cut it some slack. For real though, if someone tries to defend getting a foot scratch through high condition boots, you need help. Who knew the true enemy were the bushes and shrubs this whole time? Thank you all so much for watching. It's a bummer to have the run end the way it did, but I guess that's just Zomboid things. All we can really do is pray that issues like this are fixed sometime within the next 10 years before Build 43 drops. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring today's video. Remember to click the links in the description or pinned comment to get the game on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile. If you're brand new or someone who hasn't touched the game in 6 months on PC or consoles, you also get a bunch of free shit, which is pretty cool. Like I said in the beginning, this entire playthrough was streamed live over on Twitch, where you can find me on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. The condensed full playthrough can be found over on my second channel or up on screen right now. With that, I'm gonna get out of here. I appreciate you all. Go call a loved one, and thanks for stopping by.